The Philadelphia Flyers have traded their captain, Claude Giroux, to the Florida Panthers. Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers joins us to discuss the trade, what it means for the Flyers, what they got back, and how this team rebuilds going forward.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On NHL podcast. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And no, it's not Friday, but it is my pleasure to welcome my usual Friday co-host, Rachel Donner, to talk a little bit about the Claude Giroux trade from a Philadelphia Flyers perspective. Rachel, long time no see.
Yeah, happy to be back.
Great to have you here. So I know we talked a little on Friday's show and you were not looking forward to this trade. It was emotionally difficult for you, and I'm sure for a lot of Flyers fans as well. Now that the trade has gone down, your thoughts about what the Flyers got back and how this trade worked out?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that for the most part, Flyers fans were not expecting any sort of massive return like the Habs got for Ben Sherratt, for instance, because Giroux had a no move clause in his contract. And so basically he could pick and choose where he wanted to go. And for him, Florida was it. He just really did not want to consider any other teams. And that is his right, and more power to him. So I'm happy that if this deal had to be made, that he gets to go where he wants to go and have a real legitimate chance at winning a Stanley Cup. So that's fantastic. I think people are disappointed in the return, partially because the player we got was Owen Tippett, who has had mixed results thus far in his career and got sent down by Florida to the AHL. And so is this a guy that's really got some potential, and that maybe there were some other prospects in Florida's system than that they would have liked? And unfortunately, because of the Sherratt deal, the picks that maybe Flyers fans would have liked were not available either. So the Flyers got the 2024 first round pick from the Panthers, and that's a long way off in hockey terms. So I think that whether the Flyers use that as an asset in another trade or they use the pick in 2024, it's just hard to imagine that, and it's nothing tangible right now. But what the Flyers were able to do is offload a couple of smaller contracts for AHL guys. And the hidden benefit to that is that the Flyers were at 49 contracts, and there's a max of 50 that they're allowed. So by doing so, they created some space in their system, as well as losing Jerry Mayhew to waivers to Anaheim, which was a little unexpected. But the Flyers are now down to 45 contracts and have the space to potentially sign Noah Cates and Bobby Brink and Ronnie Attard coming out of college season after the Frozen Four tournament is over.
All right, so those are the benefits there. We saw Owen Tippett a little bit this afternoon in the game against the Islanders.
We did.
Your thoughts about his Flyers debut and how he looked, and where do you see him fitting into the Flyers going forward?
Well, I think first and foremost, they want him to play on the power play, and they gave him a ton of time in that game. And I thought he looked pretty good overall. I think he was running on adrenaline in this one because he had really only had 12 hours to prepare for this, had not gone to a Flyers practice. So basically showed up and went directly and played in a game with brand new people that he hadn't played with before. Now, luckily, he was on a line with Morgan Frost, who was a teammate for Team Canada's World Juniors team, and I think 2018. So at least there was a familiar face in the room, and somebody on his line who he was familiar with. So that was good to see. But I think, he had a couple of really good plays. I think he showed his offensive prowess in this one and didn't make any significant mistakes. I saw him, a little off a couple of times, but I think that was more due to the unfamiliarity. Now, will he be able to sustain this level of play? I don't know, because again, he was running on adrenaline, and first game, crazy things always happen. But I do think that there will be a lot of pressure on him to perform and develop. But the good news for him is that there's a lot less pressure for him on the Flyers in terms of, they're not in a playoff hunt or anything like that. So he's going to get solid NHL time and a chance to kind of build a relationship with the team and show everybody what he's got.
All right, so Claude Giroux now gone. Who do you think steps up into a leadership role for the Flyers for the rest of this season and beyond?
Well, they did give Cam Atkinson an A to kind of replace the official on-ice leadership position. And I think, that's exactly the perfect choice for it. I think that, if you're looking at potential captains down the line, you look for somebody like Cam Atkinson or a Kevin Hayes or a Sean Couturier, who I think, since he's been out injured, a lot of times we almost forget he's there in terms of the leadership role. But I think that, it'll be one of those guys that will get the captaincy next season, unless, some crazy other trade move happens. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for some of the younger guys to build leadership roles, and Joel Farabee is absolutely one of them. He had a great game against the Islanders as well, and I think, Claude Giroux kind of dubbed him the heir apparent on his way out, so to speak, and it's for good reason. I mean, Joel Farabee is extremely skilled and, has the drive, I think, to put himself in a position that eventually he will be that mentor to the younger guys coming up.
Chuck Fletcher now has this pick in 2024. It is top 10 protected. So if the Panthers fall off the face of the earth in 2023, it goes to 2025. But is it possible, do you think, that Fletcher looks to trade this pick to speed up the rebuilding program, or do you think they keep it and try to build around it?
It's an interesting question because I think it will partially depend on how hot Chuck Fletcher's seat is at the moment in this off season and what he wants to do in this quote unquote aggressive retool that they plan on doing. And, one of the signs of the methodology was the Rasmus Ristolainen contract extension and, in terms of the approach that he's taking. And I think that's what has a lot of us on edge, because it seems like he may be interested in making more hockey moves as opposed to draft and develop, or, some other way of improving the team this upcoming year. And that pick could be a prime asset to use in a bigger hockey move in the off season. But again, a lot of the dominoes have to fall before that decision would be made in terms of where the Flyers end up in the draft, and then, who's available at free agency time, and what the price is going to be and what the cap situation looks like, because they have a lot of contracts to deal with in this offseason as well.
Well, certainly will be interesting, and we'll check back with you throughout the rest of the season and the off season to see how that goes. Rachel, why don't you tell our listeners where they could find you on social media and where they could find the podcast?
You can find Locked On Flyers on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. We did a whole special episode on the Claude Giroux deal, so look for that in our feeds. And I'm on Twitter at rmiriam.
Rachel, always a pleasure, and we'll speak again on Friday.
As always.